This week on What Debris is in My Ball Nut. Alright folks, so last week I let you know that I had a job coming up. We kind of rigged my mill back up so that the spindle would work and everything, and I gotta tell you, I've been working on this job for 3 days now. Today's day 3, and it has been one problem after another, it seems like. So mainly with the Z-axis, it seems to be losing steps when it goes up, which is the worst way because it loses steps going up, and so it thinks it went that far, but it didn't. So then the next time it goes down, it plunges too deep and it destroys the part. So it's been very frustrating. As you can see behind me, the mill is torn apart. I got my awesome little stand there to hold my mill up. Don't try this at home. I'm a trained amateur trying it at home. So at this point, I bit the bullet. I let the customer know that they're not going to be delivered on time. I can deliver what I have. I offered him a partial refund plus shipping what I had. I offered him a full refund. He went ahead and said, ship what you got and continue on. So kind of puts the pressure back on me. I still got to finish this job. So I kind of went through all my settings. I figured if this thing's not going up, then it's got to be a weak motor, something in the ball screw alignment, adjustments, is everything greased, all that kind of stuff. So that was the first thing. I started loading this thing with grease, and it was still, it made it a little better, but it was still periodically or kind of just sporadically, it would stall, and so I'd have to sit there with my finger on the pause button the whole time, and this thing takes like 3 hours to run. These parts are taking forever. So it was brutal, and then sometimes you'd get 2.5 hours into it, you wouldn't catch it in time because the rapids are set pretty high right now, and it would still kill your part. So it was so frustrating. I finally said, you know what, I gotta tear my mill down and figure out what's going on. So I read about the motors. It sounds like I've actually been giving them a little bit too much current, so I turned it down. It seems to be fine. That was just with the dip switches on the stepper drivers. I also took, you can see the Z-axis, ball screw and ball nut, and all that's off. And so what you saw in that pan of cleaner was all the junk I got out of the ball nut. I took that apart. Probably should have recorded it because it was kind of interesting. I'd never done it before, but there's other videos out there on YouTube of people tearing them apart. To take them apart, if you're taking the balls out, you really just spin it off the end and the balls go everywhere. Mine was so packed full of grease that all the balls stayed in place. But all right, so this is what it all looks like torn apart. So you got your ball nut housing right here. That's what I'm calling it. It's a housing. And inside, I've since cleaned all the little grooves and everything out. And then I've got all my little balls inside there. And then over here, that's my little return track, and it still has a few balls in there. And then up here where all this kind of gobbledygook is, that was just chunks of shavings I was seeing as I was taking everything apart. And then of course I got my ball screw right there. So at this point, you already saw all the debris right here. This all came out. I just started spraying engine degreaser. I didn't want to use carb cleaner because I didn't want to be too rough on it. But you see all those chunks that are in there. That all came out of that ball screw or ball nut. All right, so here's the ball screw taken off or taken apart. The reason I took this apart was even while I was just turning it to try and clean it and everything, I could feel, I think a bearing is squished almost. And this might be my fault because I'd taken this apart trying to get a tighter Z-axis basically, trying to eliminate some backlash, and I thought maybe the bearing wasn't tight, so in between directions the whole shaft could move. If these two nuts inside here, if those aren't tight, then the whole thing can move. So I took it apart because I'm going to try and find some new bearings. One of these is really hard to turn, but it's smooth. I used to work on a system with sealed bearings, and so I think I've got a pretty good feel for what they should feel like. And this one, it just feels too tight to me. So that one to me is garbage. This one feels like about the right amount of resistance to me, but I can feel grinding inside it. And so I think this might have been the one I was feeling when it was all together. When you'd rotate it, you'd just feel this really repeatable and predictable, like a bump, just increase in resistance that you had to keep getting over. So I'm thinking that while I've got it apart, I might as well just get it perfect. So I don't think any single one thing on the Z-axis caused all these issues. I think it's probably the perfect storm of, debris in the ball screw is a big one. If this bearing on top has resistance in it, gets that right point, right where it's got the most resistance, and you got a chip inside your ball screw that's causing resistance. There might be some, like my ways might be a little bit too tight with my Gibbs. All these together, and a stepper motor that's been running all day and is hot might not have so much torque. All these things, they form the perfect storm to have a problem. And so that's why I figured just try and clear up as many of them as I can while it's torn apart, and hopefully it'll run awesome again. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned everything up. So I've got my nice clean ball screw, got my ball nut, it's all good to go, just with no balls in it. Got all my little balls. This is one of the few times I'm trying to be organized here. I've got all of them nice and clean, ready to go back in. And then I've got my other hardware, basically the little screws that hold the return tube in, and the two halves of the return tube and the little clip. So yeah, let's see. So this was oriented up, or with this part up, and then the ball nut was down. So this is how it goes on. From what I've seen on YouTube, you basically just start feeding the balls in one end of the return tube and rotate the screw to let the ball go in. So we'll see how this goes. I've never done this before. That one just dropped on in. Alright, so I went ahead and kept doing that, and now, it might be hard to see, but there's actually a ball starting to poke its head out the other side, and so that means we're basically full. There might be some gaps in there, so I'm not sure how that all works. I think they eventually kind of work themselves to a good spot. So now I've got these remaining balls right here, and this little return track here. So what I'm going to do is put the rest of them, if they all fit, which I don't know, it's looking a little sketch. I'm going to put all these in here and close it up. Yeah, those are totally not going to fit. They didn't tell me about that in the little how-to video. I'm going to be about 3 balls too many there, I think. So close that up and hold that together above the towel so they don't all fall on the floor when I drop this. One of them just popped up there. Alright, so I have about 3 too many balls. So I think what I'm going to try and do is work the ball nut back and forth and see if I can get some room. So let's see if I just gently wiggle this, if it'll kind of let me drop some more in there. Okay, actually I think there was some room on the other side of it, so over here it actually opened up quite a bit. Okay, so all those dropped in. So I've got the rest of the balls in the return little guy there. And so the next instructions I saw was to put a little dab of grease on each end, just to hold the balls in, so that when I flip it over, they don't all fall out when I'm trying to click it into its spot. This is just white lithium grease. This is what I use on the lead screw itself, or ball screw. Okay. Well, it seems to be moving. So I guess we'll know if it's all the way in there when I put the clip on there, if it sits down nicely. All right, I think that'll work. Well, seems to be working. Uh-oh, balls are coming out. I see 3 so far. Remember when I said I had 3 too many? There they are. Alright, so there's 1. There's the other 2. So I will take that return back off and try to get these guys in there. Still feels, it actually feels a lot better than before. I didn't think I'd feel much difference. Might be because all the grease is cleared out of them so that they can really move when there's no grease in them. Okay, a few fell out over here on the other side. Oh, just 1, okay. I guess the other ones fell back into the holes. So I opened it up and there's not very many in the little return chute, so I'm going to throw my extras in there now. Nice little gap there. Close that back up. Okay, it's totally not seated down there though. Let's try and, oh, there it goes. One thing I gotta do is check, since I can't exactly see inside here, and make sure none of the balls came out the top. Instead of, I don't think they can. I think they can only come out this bottom portion, but we'll double check here. So looking inside here, there's not enough clearance for the balls to even fall out. There we go. They'd fall out if I roll it down. I'm not seeing any yet, so I think we're good. I gotta make sure I don't take it off that edge or we'll be starting over. There we go. I think we're good. Alright, sadly enough, that is about all I've got for this week. I'm going to go ahead and put an order in for the bearings on the top here where it connects to the motor mount. But otherwise, I'm not going to put this together until I get those bearings in. So it's already the weekend, so they'll probably come in Wednesday, 2-day shipping. And we'll have this sucker back up and running. But I think this was my problem with my Z-axis. So I will see you next week. Isn't that cool?